Tēnā koutou, and welcome to our online worship service for Sunday the 3rd of May. It's so wonderful that you could join us this morning. If this is your first time watching us, a special welcome to you. Later on in the service, we will be hearing from a few of our family's bubbles in the church. We will also be doing communion together as it is the first Sunday in May. Let's just take a minute to quieten our hearts as we come together in the Lord's presence. Let's pray. Our Father, Creator, all-powerful and mighty ruler, we come into your presence this morning. We come with all the anxieties and doubts and concerns and worries that are in our hearts, and we give these over to you now. Please forgive us for the times that we have strayed from you this week. However we are feeling, whatever has happened this week, we know that we can still come into your presence and worship you. We ask that this morning will be a time of deep connection with you and encouragement by your word. So quieten our minds, Lord, and bring joy to our hearts as we consider how truly great you are. Amen. Let's join together in worship.
At his voice and trembles at his voice. How great is our God? Sing with me, how great is our God? And all will say how great is our God. From age to age he stands, and time is in his hands, beginning and the end, beginning and the end. The Godhead three in one, Father, Spirit, Son, the Lion and the Lamb, the Lion and the Lamb. How great is our God? Sing with me, how great is our God? And all will see how great is our God. You're the name above all names, worthy of all praise. My heart will sing, how great is our God. You're the name above all names, worthy of all praise. My heart will sing, how great is our God. How great
Hi guys, this is Celeste from our bubble. We just thought we would give you our highs and lows. We usually do this around the dinner table, so this is our highs and lows of bubble. So you want to go first?
Yeah, let me start. I suppose to start with, I'll start with our highs. We've actually had quite a great sort of time together as a family. We both feel very fortunate that our kids are the age they are. So, and the fact that they've been absolute angels for us. Yeah, it's been really good. We've done a lot of bonding, obviously, maybe a bit more than what we usually do. But I think fortunately with us being such a close-knit family, it's been really easy. It's been good. I'm actually looking forward to keeping them home for the next couple of weeks. Keep them safe, and then I suppose Candice can talk about a high, I suppose.
Well, we've been very lucky, like Richard said, and we've been very busy. So we've got our desks, and although we're in the same space for a whole day, sometimes we don't really speak very much for a day, but we always have our family time later on. So we're blessed in that way. Got work, got pay, which is always good. Really praying for those people who are battling and with this financial pressure that everybody has, and we think of you and we're praying hard for you. One of Richard's highs as well.
Yeah, on that note, I would just like to say thanks to everybody for all the prayers I've had for work. This has probably been the most busy time I've had in my entire stay in New Zealand. We've been very, very fortunate. A lot of work has come our way with some really great opportunities. So I'd just like to say thank you. So for Candice and I, both been really busy. That's, I suppose, taken a lot of pressure off our shoulders. Although we have been almost too busy. But yeah.
Bit of a high, bit of a low.
Yeah.
We've had a little bit of lows. My mom went into hospital. They thought they tested her for COVID. Luckily, she was fine. Although she did have pneumonia, but she's on the road to recovery and she's feeling a lot better. You want to go?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I've had a bit of a low as well. My godfather has contracted the virus. He got it about 3 weeks ago and has been in an induced coma for just over 2 weeks. Take two on that. My godfather has been in an induced coma, not being able to breathe on his own. But fortunately, in the last week, they've started bringing him out of the coma. He's able to interact with people. So, things are looking positive. The future from however might be quite difficult with possibility of being on dialysis for probably the rest of his life because of the damage.
Yeah, otherwise, just keep him in your prayers and all those people suffering from COVID-19. And we're just happy to be in New Zealand and thinking of all of you and praying for all of you. And it will be nice to see each other sometime in the future.
Yeah, I must say we really have been missing our church community, our family. And we can't wait till we can all meet up again.
Oh, I just remembered, I don't know if it's a high or a low though. So we usually do go up in front and say our birthdays and celebrations. So I had a birthday in the bubble and it was a big one. We won't say which one. And so there was a high and a low, but it was good. And Richard and I are coming up to our 15th wedding anniversary soon in May. So that's also a big high for us in our bubble.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think we're going to have to get the kids to prepare a restaurant for us. Maybe spoil us, but we've got a short little video clip that I'm going to play after this just to show you some of the things we've been up to. And as we said, really looking forward to seeing everybody's faces again.
Thank you, you guys.
Cheers.
has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope.
Then came the morning that sealed the promise. Your buried body began to breathe. Out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me. Then came the morning that sealed the promise. Your buried body began to breathe. Out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me.
Jesus, yours is the victory. Hallelujah, praise the one who sets me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Hallelujah, praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation
In the land of Uz, there lived a man whose name was Job.
Sorry, stop. Job.
Job.
Start again here.
I thought it was Job.
Job.
Okay. In the land of Uz, there lived a man whose name was Job. This man was blameless and upright. He feared God and shunned evil. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters, and he owned 7,000 sheep and 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 donkeys, and had a large number of servants. He was the greatest man among all the people of the East. His sons used to take turns holding feasts in their homes, and they would invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. When a period of feasting had run its course, Job would send and have them purified. Early in the morning he would sacrifice a burnt offering for each of them, thinking, "Perhaps my children have sinned," and curse God in their hearts. This was Job's regular custom. One day the angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them. The Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" Satan answered the Lord, "From roaming through the earth and going back and forth in it." Then the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. He is blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil. Does Job fear God for nothing?" Satan replied. "Have you not put a hedge around him and his household and everything he has? You have blessed the work of his hands, so that his flocks and herds are spread throughout the land. But stretch out your hand and strike everything he has, and he will surely curse you to your face." The Lord said to Satan, "Very well then, everything he has is in your hands, but on the man himself do not lay a finger." Then Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. One day, when Job's sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the oldest brother's house, a messenger came to Job and said, "The oxen were plowing and the donkeys were grazing nearby." Said the Sabeans, attacked and carried them off. They put the servants to the sword, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, another messenger came and said, "The fire of God fell from the sky and burned the sheep and the servants, and I'm the only one who has escaped to tell you." While he was still speaking, another messenger came and said, The Chaldeans formed 3 raiding parties and swooped down on your camels and carried them off. They put the servants to the sword, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you." While he was still speaking, yet another messenger came and said, "Your sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the oldest brother's house, when suddenly a mighty wind swept in from the desert and struck the 4 corners of the house. It collapsed on them, and they are dead, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you." At this, Job got up and tore his robe and shaved his head. Then he fell to the ground in worship and said, "Naked I am from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised." In all this, Job did not sin by charging God with wrongdoing.
Let's pray for God's blessing as we come to his love letter to us, his word. Let's pray. Jesus, we ask that the words that you have caused to be written would become to us words of life, not just information, Lord, but transformation into the image of who you are. Amen. Kofi Annan was for many years an amazing leader in the global scene. He was the Secretary General of the United Nations from the late 90s through to 2006, I think. He came from Ghana, and he was a man who was well known to be someone who had the amazing capacity to see the big picture of things. And he was asked once, how did he get this ability to see the big picture of things? And he told the story about how when he was a young boy in school, a teacher came along one day and took out a big sheet of paper, and taking out a marker pen, drew a small dot on the sheet of paper. And the teacher turned around and asked all the boys, what do you see? And they all put up their hands and said, "Sir, we see the dot." And the teacher said, "Yes, but did you see the paper?" And Kofi Annan always refers to this moment in his life where he grew in the understanding of the need to see the big picture of things. And that served him well as he went into many other pursuits in life. But it's a good question to bring also as we come to the book of Job. What are we looking at? And by looking at that, what are we missing? Now, the book of Job, if we know anything about it, which many of us do, we know that it's a book that has to do with suffering. Job's all about suffering, isn't it? It's about a bloke who has had some bad stuff happen, and how he deals with it is kind of his journey. That's the story of the book of Job. And so we think that when bad stuff happens to us, it's a good place to turn to. When my relationships are rocky, when I have health issues, or when my employment ends, or when I'm just going through hard stuff, the book of Job is a great place to turn to because it gives us answers to the questions, why does bad stuff happen to good people? And it's a reasonable kind of thing to suggest and to say, but it's not really right. Job does speak about suffering, but that's not really the point of the story. A key to understanding the book of Job is to understand it is not really about suffering. It instead focuses on righteousness. Job is not really concerned with suffering, it is concerned with righteousness or faithfulness to God. What's important in doing that and showing faithfulness and righteousness? Now, remember last week we talked about the whole wisdom background to the book of Job. And the concern for wisdom writers was to understand how we do life best, how we live life well. And their conviction, certainly the Hebrew wisdom writers, was that to do life well, you need to be righteous, living faithfully, or what they would say, living in the fear of the Lord. And one of the problems we talked about last week was that led to a cause and effect mindset, yeah? If people do good, God will bless them, they will know prosperity. If people do wrong, do badly, live poorly, this will cause God to withhold blessing, and they will suffer. And the big phrase we used to talk about that was the retribution principle. Not so keen on the phrase because big words they're always unhelpful. So I'm going to coin a new phrase today and call it God karma, right? Probably not a technical phrase, but let's just use it because it's less threatening. God karma. The idea that God makes good things happen to good people and bad things happen to bad people, okay? Let's just call it God karma. So that was one of the problems that wisdom thinking led to. Now, do you see another problem with this whole idea of God karma? The problem is this. It calls into question why good people are being good. It casts suspicions on them because maybe good people are just being good because it gets them stuff, right? Maybe they have a vested interest in being good because it is their strategy to prosperity. And so this is one of the problems of where wisdom thinking had taken people as well. Anyone who is a parent can relate to this. Because as parents, we try to train our kids in goodness and righteousness, if you like, in character. And certainly when my kids were younger, we would have on the fridge progress charts, reward charts, if you like. And if we saw our child doing something good, we'd put their little token up from one reward level to the next. And if we saw them doing something poorly or wrongly or spitting or kicking or hitting or whatever, would take them down a notch. And the kids knew that if they got their little marker right to the top of the chart, then they would get a reward. They would get a chocolate or a toy or something, yeah? And so we knew as parents of our boys that their righteousness had a little bit of a vested interest in it. They were being righteous because they wanted the chocolate. And that was okay for a while, when they're young, because we're trying to mold and shape character. And as parents, we will just do whatever we can. But the end point of that process, we hope, is that there would be a person who does not need kickbacks in order to be good, right? They'll be good because it's the right thing to do. That's the end point. That, too, should be the end point for people in general. How do we create people who will be righteous for the sake of being righteous, not for the sake of any kickbacks? Enter the amazing story of Job. The book of Job is not focused on the reasons for our sufferings. It is concerned instead with our reasons for being righteous, our reasons for being faithful to God. And it asks the key question, are human beings even capable of showing a faithfulness to God without any thought of reward? Can we even do that? Because if people are being good simply for the point of getting stuff, are they actually really good? That's the question that is set up. Can a faithfulness to God without any thought of reward even exist? And it's a really important question, totally important question. Because as we look through the world and through creation through the eyes of the New Testament, we understand that God is trying to bring into being a people who are growing in likeness to the character of Jesus. This amazing figure who gave himself away, who self-sacrificed for the good of the world. Can we actually be conformed to that if our goodness is really self-serving? So this is a huge question, cosmic actually, in terms of what is at stake here. It's a question worth answering. And to answer that question, you need a test case, a person who is the living embodiment, if you like, of God karma. So you're looking around for a person who is very righteous, and that has led to enormous prosperity. And then you're wanting to take your scissors and cut the link between the two and see what happens. Right? So enter the man called Job. And what the writer does beautifully in the first chapters of Job is show how perfectly Job meets the criteria for being this test case. These are Job's credentials. Firstly, he is deeply, deeply righteous. He is profoundly devoted to God. He lives a life of incredible faithfulness. So for chapter 1, verse 1. In the land of Uz there lived a man whose name was Job. This man was blameless and upright. He feared God, that's the wisdom phrase, and he shunned evil. So there's the wisdom thinking, there's two paths. Job was invested in the God path and turned his back on the evil path. Very much a wisdom basis here. Now, the interesting thing about this test case of Job is that he is not an Israelite. He's not a Hebrew. Instead, he lives in a distant land, in a foreign country called Uz, or Uz. And what that means is that he's not actually a Hebrew test case. He's a test case for the world. However, he is also someone who has profound and deep devotion to Israel's God. And he is someone described in Hebrew wisdom terms. He fears God and he shuns evil. Not just for himself, but for those under his care and under his influence. And the story goes on to show the picture of a dad who regularly gathers his kids around him, his 10 kids. And for each one of them, he sacrifices an animal after they've had a big party, just in case. In perhaps a drunken state, they may have spoken against God, or in their heart may have turned against God, and Job is wanting to provide some sense of forgiveness for them. So he's profoundly God-focused. He lives a righteous life. First criteria, tick. Second criteria, yeah, he's all there. He is insanely wealthy, right? He had 7 sons and 3 daughters. And as we mentioned last week, this is the writer's wink, wink, nudge, nudge to the fact that Job has a perfect family. Sons were the desired child in this kind of culture. Sorry, just what it was. To have sons, daughters was great, but to have sons was better, I'm afraid. And 7 was the perfect number in Hebrew thinking. So he has been blessed to the nth by God in terms of children and family. He has the perfect family. And he owns 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 donkeys, and a large number of servants to look after them all. And these animals are the kind of animals that speak of large-scale agricultural enterprise. So Job here has an agricultural empire. Now, so many oxen to till the ground and so on. He's very, very wealthy. So he has a perfect family. He has prosperity galore. And he also has reputation. He was the greatest man among all the people of the East. And as the story goes on, we learn that Job is actually very, very concerned about his reputation. So, God karma? Yup. Job has God karma in spades. He could be the pin-up boy for God karma. He's devoted to God. He is blessed abundantly. Ladies and gentlemen, the stage is set. Enter the accuser. And we are given a glimpse behind the curtain of our reality, but also of Job's reality. In verse 6, one day the angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them. The Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" Satan answered the Lord, "From roaming throughout the earth, going back and forth on it." Now the word Satan here simply means accuser. So this being comes bringing an accusation. What is it? Let's read. The Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. He's blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil," exactly the same words as the narrator gave at the start. Yeah, but does Job fear God for nothing? Asks Satan. Have you not put a hedge of protection around him and his household and everything that he has? You've blessed the work of his hands, so his flocks and his herds are spread throughout the land. Do you hear what he is saying here? What accusation he is bringing? Job is only righteous because it's in his best interests to be righteous. So the accuser is targeting the very heart of God karma. But now stretch out your hand and strike everything he has, and he will surely curse you to your face. And the Lord said to Satan, "Very well then, everything he has is in your power, but on the man himself do not lay a finger." And then Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. And we have just read in the Bible reading what happens after this. Job chapter 1 is all about extremes. Job is extremely righteous. He's extremely prosperous. And so now the testing that will come upon him will be extremely sudden and extremely severe. He loses virtually everything. Tsunami after tsunami after tsunami crashes in upon him and drags away everything he has. And in one day, he is left with nothing. It is gone. What does he do? Now, I want to talk to your head and I want to talk to your heart, because both are important in this story, if that's okay. Let's firstly talk to your head, because chapter 1 and chapter 2 set up everything that is going to follow in the next 40 chapters of Job. If you do not understand what is going on here, you will not get the rest of the story. So it's really important that you understand with your head some things about what's going on here. Job has received trial upon trial. But in fact, Job himself is not on trial. Okay? Job is not on trial. And I use this courtroom language because Job does later on in the story. Later on in the story, Job wants, in fact, to take God to court because God is being unjust in his actions towards Job. Job thinks. He wants his day in court. He wants to plead his innocence and show God's injustice, if you like, in the way that God is treating him. Why would Job want to take God to court later on in the story? It is because Job basically believes in the God karma idea. And he's saying to God, God, I'm innocent of all these great wrongs that I'm being accused of. You shouldn't therefore be bringing suffering on me. So Job is quite invested in the God karma idea. If you were to draw a picture, you might draw it like this. Imagine there is a dot on a page. We'll call that dot Job. Now, draw another dot and call that dot God karma, which is basically our idea of wisdom, what wisdom would say life worked like. Job is fairly invested in the idea of God karma, right? He's saying to God, these things shouldn't be happening to me because I've done nothing wrong. This should lead to that, right? So he's kind of invested in the idea of God karma, but he is accusing God. So let's draw another dot up above and call it the God dot. And Job is very intense, and later on in the story, he kind of aggroes up and begins laying complaints against God because God is not being just. He's not showing justice, he thinks. Okay? So we have three dots there. Job, God karma, and God himself. Now, very soon in the story from this point, three friends will come along, three mates of Job's. And these guys will come and sit very firmly in the God karma corner. And they reckon that God karma is how God always works. They're very invested in it. This is God's policy and how life works. And they believe in God karma and they believe in the justice of God. So the only person who can be left at fault is Job. There's no other dot. Job has to be sinful somehow. And that is where their conversations will take them. Now later on, further in the story, another friend comes along whose name is Elihu. And he sits firmly in the God corner, the God dot, because Job has been making accusations against God. And Elihu appoints himself as God's defense counsel, if you like. And he believes in the God karma idea as well, with a few tweaks. And he believes in God's justice, and so the person for him that has to be at fault too is Job. And so what we have here is a triangle where there are accusers and there are defendants. Job is defending himself and accusing God of being unjust. The three mates are defending the idea of God karma and God's justice, and are therefore accusing Job of being sinful. The fourth guy is defending God and his justice and believes in God karma, and he's accusing Job, right? So this is how the story will proceed from here. It's very important that you understand the triangle of defense and accusation that is going on. And we'll pick this up later on. But right at the very start of the story, God lets us in on a secret. The writer of this book lets us in on a secret. I used to love watching a show on TV called Dynamo, Magician Impossible. Did you ever see that? A wonderful show where there's this magician, this English magician called Dynamo. And he used to do these amazing things. He would walk on water. He would walk up the side of buildings. He would take an iPhone and twist it around. And I used to watch him and go, how on earth can he do these things? I was completely bamboozled. Until the day I happened to be on YouTube and saw a YouTube documentary revealing all the secrets of Dynamo's tricks. And here is one of them, which shows the secret to the trick of Dynamo twisting an iPhone. Check it out.
Have you ever tried to twist your iPhone from its center? Obviously not, but Dynamo has done it in front of people on the streets. He took an iPhone and magically twisted it from its center to half screen and half back position. That's insane! But how did he do it? Well, here's the actual trick behind it. Dynamo took an exact half back cover of iPhone and placed it carefully holding over the screen. Now showing his audience the back of the iPhone at first, he covered the iPhone with both of his hands, and instead of twisting it, he just rotated the iPhone entirely to the screen side with the half back cover placed over it.
Chances are that when I showed you that video again, you were looking in a different place from when you first saw the trick. You weren't looking at the phone, you were looking at his hands. And that is what the secret, the revelation, allowed you to do, to look in the right place. And that's what happens in the book of Job. The writer gives you a secret, lets you in on a secret which changes where you look. And the secret is this, that Job is in fact innocent. In this triangle that we've just outlined, Job is not guilty of sin. And we have this right from the start. Verse 8, the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. He is blameless and upright, a man who fears God, who shuns evil. So Job thinks he is on trial throughout the story. But we know that he isn't, because we have been given a glimpse behind the curtain, a glimpse that Job doesn't see and never sees. But we are given that glimpse right at the outset. Why? To help us look in the right place for the things that God wants to show us in the story. And we will get to those later on in the series. But understand that in that triangle, Job is innocent. Even though he thinks he is on trial, God doesn't. That helps us focus on what really matters later on. Okay? So the triangle is really important. That's the head stuff. But let me focus now just on the heart stuff. I want to talk to your heart. Because when Job is visited by devastation after devastation, how does he react? Let me pick up the story in verse 18. While he was still speaking, yet another messenger came and said, your sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the oldest brother's house, when suddenly a mighty wind swept in from the desert and struck the four corners of the house. It collapsed on them, and they are dead. And I am the only one who has escaped to tell you." At this, Job got up and tore his robe and shaved his head. Just expressions in his culture of incredible grief. And then he fell to the ground in worship and said, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised." He grieves, but then he worships. It's almost like his first instinct, his knee-jerk response to anything in life is to worship God. He couldn't understand. How could he understand what had just gone on? He couldn't. But he could worship. And he does. And I find myself thinking about this story and asking the question, how did Job develop that kind of an instinct where it's like he doesn't even think about it? He just goes, "I need to worship." And the glimpse we get through these opening chapters and scenes of Job gives us the answer. The answer is Job develops this instinct for worship because he's always worshiping. He lives a life where every moment of the day he's living under the sense of God's hand. When things happen that are good, he worships. When things happen that are wrong, he worships. It's like God is this gravity well that he just keeps turning back to time and time again. So how is he set up in a moment of incredible tragedy to immediately worship God? It's because worship is what he does. It's just how he is. It's how he lives his life, is to be focused on God, bringing things back to God all the time. And yes, later on in the story, he will come to God with accusations and with complaints, but he's coming to God. And that's what worship does. It helps us go to the one who actually matters. And so the opening question in the book of Job, is there such a thing as righteousness and faithfulness that gives no thought to kickbacks, to no thought of prosperity or blessing that might come? Yes, there is. That question is answered almost as soon as it is asked. Job shows a disinterested righteousness. He doesn't care about himself. And that has been growing in him because he worships all the time. And it makes me ask myself, and I might do the same for you, do I have a knee-jerk reaction in life to worship God? And if I don't, if you don't, maybe it's because we are not worshiping God enough. Through the things that life brings to you that are great, do you worship God? When the things come to you from life which are hard, do you worship God? Let us be a people for whom worship becomes instinctual because we have trained ourselves to come to God. May we do and so be for the glory of God in our lives. Let's pray together. Jesus, we thank you for the man Job, who shows us some things that we need to know about what it is to truly be righteous, to be those who seek to live faithfully to you. As he trained himself in righteousness, Lord, in worship rather, help us to train ourselves also in worship. Coming back to you in all seasons, in all situations, because that is the place we need to be in. And as we do, as we come to that place repeatedly in the week ahead, change us, grow us to be like Jesus, who we love and serve, and in whose name we ask. Amen. So we're going to be delving more into this amazing story next week. So if you'd like to read chapter 2 and 3, there's some fascinating things still to come. God bless you. We'll talk soon. Bye for now. We're going to have a time of communion very soon. And so if you'd like to pause the video and get yourself some drink of some sort and some bread or crackers or whatever, we're going to share this together very shortly. Communion is one of those things that you can do alone, but the context of communion, when it's spoken about in the New Testament, is always as a people. And there was a concern for people that was expressed in Paul's instructions on how to do communion. The nature of the relationships between people was important, as well as the relationship between us and God that we reflect on when we take the elements of bread and juice. I want to just focus for a little while on us together. And to do that, we have an amazing treat. We have some messages, either audio or video, from a number of our faith family. And I want to just show them to you now. Just look at them, enjoy them, remember again each other. As you see and hear people, pray for them. And then at the end of this, we will take communion together. Let's watch.
Hello everyone, and still beware of the COVID-19, and our family hope that you are still safe and sound.
There's not much difference for me, as everything's normal. My work is normal. The bad thing I love is that there's no traffic on the road.
And we also joined mainly music sessions online, London 3 New Zealand on air.
Good morning everyone. Reflecting on lockdown, it has been a very positive time for us. We hope this is our bubble, and we hope that you're all well. Look forward to seeing you soon.
I've been very pleased to be watching the church services from Remuera Baptist during the lockdown, and I am very pleased to see the activity of the people that have been taking part, and I found it very enjoyable and enjoyed the singing, enjoyed the various speakers, and I think it's been great during the lockdown that they've been able to do this, and I'd like to thank Murray very much for his leadership during that time.
Hey, Remuera Baptist. What I've noticed with in my local community in Stonefields is people out of their houses, out and about, being relational, which is kind of interesting. I think the crisis has made people really appreciate community and old-fashioned values. Normally Stonefields is a bit of a ghost town, but I've noticed people wanting to be out and talking to other people and connect with other people, obviously following all of the appropriate guidelines with social distancing. But I've actually noticed Stonefields has actually been quite outward focused rather than inward and all locked in their homes, which I think is a really positive thing. It's like when we were children, or a lot of us were children, would always be out and about. I've seen more of that in the crisis, which I think is good, you know, rather than stuck inside on iPads and gaming, etc. It's a really positive thing. I think when things do settle down eventually, I think it's probably going to change quite significantly and make us appreciate the things that we probably didn't invest in as much, including relationships, a bit more. Thanks.
Hi, this is Trish Jane speaking to you. I've been missing all of you. Well, there's been no church, but it's been good to hear Murray's messages and to be able to sing the hymns and even to have communion, even if it's on our own. We hope that you are doing okay with the lockdown, and we have had to suddenly retire because there's no bed and breakfast and there's no teaching, so we've been getting used to sitting on the deck. We take walks at the beach and in the park, and I have phoned many people in the church for a chat, and I phoned all my old friends in my notebook and had a great catch up. So you have a lovely service today. Bye.
Hi there.
Hello. So for me, lockdown has been a time of making sure I find things that fill up my tank. So making sure I connect with my friends who I obviously can't see at the moment, and connect with my family who are over on the shore. So it's been really important to find those type of ways to fill back up and feel good about myself and just my journey.
Nice. Personally for me, quarantine has brought to my attention the importance of my neighborhood. Recently, the guy next to us has been giving us bowls of fruit and homemade Anzac biscuits. It's been really lovely, and it's just brought to mind the importance of the people who are geographically right around us, and how important it is to build relationships with them, because they are our neighbors, you know? Thanks.
I've just come back from my first walk out of the property now that we're in level 3. And what a thrill it was to climb up to the top of the mountain and to be able to see the whole of Auckland spread at my feet. But as I walked up, I was struck by the beauty of the grass and the water the dew sprinkled on the grass, shining in the sunshine. And it reminded me of 2 of the verses that have meant a lot to me over the years, and particularly in the last few weeks, as we have had to turn in upon ourselves and upon our own resources and reach out to the Lord. And the first, significantly, is from Job. And it is that lovely passage in Job chapter 14 where Job says, "There is hope for a tree. If it is cut down, it will sprout again, and its new shoots will not fail. Its roots may grow old in the ground and its stump die in the soil. Yet at the scent of water it will bud and put forth shoots like a plant." And how much we're promised that at the scent of water, at the scent of Jesus, our lives will grow and flourish. And then I remember again Jeremiah as he was speaking to the people as they were in the exile, as they were in lockdown, separated from their place of worship, from their old familiar ways, and they were having to reach God in a new way. And he brought the promise from God, "I will bless those who trust me. They will be like trees growing beside a stream, trees that reach out, trees with roots that reach down to the water, and with leaves that are always green. They bear fruit every year. They are never worried by lack of rain." And so we've been caught in lockdown. We have had lack of rain, but God has been there, and we have been able to bear fruit with the content, with the contacts that we've had in this way. And so throughout it all, I give thanks for the water of life.
Hi, it's Peter Fraser here, Peter and Lynette, and sending greetings to everybody in this time of lockdown, and the time we've had and shared and what we've done together has been good. and enjoyed plenty of physical activities outside walking and just generally, living life to the full. So thank you and take care, everyone.
Nice, Dan. What are you doing there?
What are you up to?
Oh, I just wanted to show everyone what you're doing. What are you doing here?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm reading Keeping Yourself Safe, COVID-19 Precautions Alert Level 3. because I have to. It's not because I want to. Okay, give it some throttle. Brum brum, brum brum. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, more. Throttle.
Oh, this is Dulcie. I'd like to give my warm greetings to you all. As Murray mentioned on Sunday, sometimes, like Elijah, you need time out to reflect and to remember the things that God has done and remember others that are in situations that are much worse than ones we are in, and to remember the people that we have sent overseas and the people that they have contacted in Jesus' name. I'd also like to say I'm looking forward to meeting you all again when that becomes possible. In the meantime, it's good to keep in touch by phone as we remember the good times that we have had together. God bless you all.
Hello everybody. It's been very peaceful and quiet over the last month, and we've enjoyed keeping in touch with our friends and people by telephone, and every day we made time for either a walk or a long bike ride, and it's been amazing. Great weather and lots of people out. Enjoyed that.
Lovely to see families enjoying the time outside. We also felt a little bit challenged that this is quite a special time, this quietness and not so many distractions, and we probably won't get this time again. And we felt that we wanted to take some extra time to set aside and do a devotional series that we've had for a while and just wait on the Lord and listen to Him. And that's been really special. It's been a bit like a gift, really.
Yeah.
Quite hard to allow ourselves to do that, or allow myself to do that. But, yeah, one of the special parts of all of this, really.
Okay, thanks guys.
Bye
See
for
ya.
now.
Hi everyone, my name's Lindsay. I'm one of the elders in our church. For those of you who don't know me, or those who haven't seen me so long who've forgotten about me, just want to wish you all a very warm greeting and hope that you're enjoying the lockdown. It's just moved to the new stage for us, and I'm being able to come visit the grandchildren who I've missed terribly. So me and my family are doing okay, and we really hope that you are all doing okay as well. God bless. Look forward to seeing all of you sometime soon. Bye for now.
The Lord Jesus, on the night he was betrayed, he took bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and said, "This is my body, which is for you. Do this in remembrance of me." Let's eat the bread together and thank God for his sacrifice for us. In the same way, after supper, he took the cup, saying, "This cup is the new covenant, the new agreement. In my blood, do this whenever you drink it, in remembrance of me." Let's share in the cup of Christ now, remembering his blood spilled for us. For whenever you eat this bread and drink this cup, you proclaim the Lord's death until he comes. Lord, we have eaten and we have drunk from your cup. May we proclaim for the glory of Christ in our world. Amen.